Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take the sources you send us, sift through them, and try to get to the heart of the story.
Exactly. And today, we're looking at someone you definitely know, or think you know, Mila Kunis.
Right. Instantly recognizable, Jackie from that 70s show, Meg from Family Guy. She's been around seemingly forever on our screens.
But the materials we looked through paint a much deeper picture. It's not just the sitcom star. It's a story about, well, huge upheaval, immigration, cultural clashes, and a really deliberate, sometimes difficult shift in her career and public image.
So we're going beyond the surface. We're looking at Mila Kunis, the journey from refugee to, well, this major Hollywood player.
That's the plan. Our mission today is to kind of unpack it all based on these sources. Her roots, that shock of moving, how she built that early TV career sometimes with a bit of strategic maneuvering.
And then that big pivot, right, moving into film, the disappointments, the huge successes like Black Swan, and then becoming a producer, a philanthropist, a really complex figure.
Absolutely. And if there's one core thing to keep in mind throughout this, it's her origin. Born Mila Kunis, August 14th, 1983, in Chernivtsi, Ukraine, which was then part of the Soviet Union.
And she moved to Los Angeles when she was just 7. A move that, as the sources show, cost her family pretty much everything they had. And that really seems to fuel everything that comes later. Okay, let's start there. Chernivtsi, Ukrainian SSR. Born into a Jewish family, the sources suggest life was, okay professionally, but restrictive.
Definitely restrictive. Her family was educated. Her mom, Elvira, a physics teacher and pharmacist. Her dad, Mark, a mechanical engineer. These were good jobs.
But they decided to leave in 1991. She was 7. And it wasn't just an economic decision, was it? It was about the future.
Right. The sources are clear. They saw no future for their kids, Mila and her brother Michael, in the Soviet Union. And a big part of that calculation was anti-Semitism.
That's explicitly mentioned as a reason for seeking religious refugee status to get to the U.S. It suggests a level of, well, fear, or at least deep concern about discrimination.
It must have been immense to make them give up everything, those amazing jobs, as the sources call them, and degrees that just weren't transferable in the U.S. Imagine being a respected engineer and suddenly you're driving a cab in L.A., which is what her father did initially.
That's a huge professional and personal blow.
And then the money aspect. It's just staggering. They arrived with only $250.
Wow.
And, that wasn't like their savings plan. That was the legal limit all the Soviet government would let them take out. So they landed in L.A. with basically nothing, starting completely over.
You can only imagine what that felt like for 7-year-old Milena, plucked from everything she knew, dropped into L.A., and, crucially, not speaking the language.
No English at all. And her family language, her mother tongue, is Russian. That's important. The sources point out she actually doesn't speak Ukrainian.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, back then, in her region, kids didn't start learning Ukrainian in school until the 2nd grade, and that's exactly when she left. So she arrived speaking Russian, facing this massive English barrier.
And the impact was immediate. She was enrolled in elementary school, Rosewood Elementary, just 2 days after landing. She's talked about basically blocking out that whole year.
Yeah, she said she cried every single day, didn't understand the culture, the language, anything. It was complete alienation.
There's that quote from her college essay, isn't there? It really sums it up.
It does. The first sentence was, "Imagine being blind and deaf at age 7. That captures the intensity of it, right? You can see and hear, but you can't process or connect. Just overwhelming sensory input without meaning.
Yet, somehow, she pushed through. The education path shows that. Hubert Howe Bancroft Middle School, then even a brief stint at LACE's Los Angeles Center for Enriched Studies, which is known for being pretty academically challenging.
That drive is incredible. You see that immigrant determination, maybe feeling the weight of her parents' sacrifice, needing to make it work, to assimilate, to succeed.
Although her acting career eventually took precedence, right? She transferred to Fairfax High School and relied mostly on an on-set tutor to graduate in 2001.
Yes, but she got it done. She's a naturalized U.S. citizen. And it all comes back to that initial journey, that identity. The sources even mention a genealogical DNA test.
Oh, yeah. What did it show?
It described her ethnicity as 96 to 98% Ashkenazi Jewish, which, connects directly back to why her family felt they had to leave the Soviet Union in the first place. It really grounds her later advocacy work.
So that drive, that discipline we talked about, it seems like it channeled directly into acting pretty quickly. But it wasn't initially the plan, was it?
Not really. It sounds like it was almost an accident of assimilation. Her dad enrolled her in acting classes at Beverly Hills Studios when she was 9. Maybe just to help her with English, build confidence.
But she met her manager there, Susan Curtis,
Yeah.
and things took off almost immediately.
It's kind of amazing, actually. The sources say she landed her first audition, a Barbie commercial.
That's insane. Luck or talent or both.
Right. And then another big one for kids back then, a Lisa Frank commercial. So bam, she's a working child actor almost straight away.
Then came the TV spots in '94. Days of Our Lives, Baywatch. Building that resume.
Little parts here and there. Some family movies like Santa with Muscles, Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves. And then a slightly more serious role in 1998 playing young Gia Karangi in the HBO movie Gia.
Opposite Angelina Jolie. That's a step up. She was, what, 14 or 15 then?
Yeah, just laying the groundwork. But the absolute game changer, the role that defined her early career, was just around the corner. That 70s show.
Jackie Burkhart. Iconic. But there was that whole issue with her age, right? They wanted someone older.
They specifically wanted actors 18 or over, and Mila was 14 when she auditioned in 1998.
So, how did she swing it? This is where that hustle comes in again.
Total hustle. According to the sources, she told the casting directors she would be 18. She just conveniently left out the when.
Huh. That's brilliant. Strategic ambiguity, you called it.
Exactly. It showed she was determined to get that shot. And apparently, when the producers figured out she was only 14.
They kept her anyway. Wow.
Because she was just perfect for Jackie. She nailed that spoiled, funny, sharp-tongued character. The fate was just too good to pass up, even with the age thing.
And that show was massive. 8 seasons. It cemented her place. She even won awards for it, right?
Yep. 2 Young Star Awards back-to-back in '99 and 2000. It was her foundation.
And right around the same time, 1999, she picks up another huge long-running gig, voice acting, Meg Griffin on Family Guy.
Yeah, she replaced Lacey Chabert. And it's fascinating why Seth MacFarlane chose her.
What was his reasoning?
He said her voice sounded very natural for a teenager. He felt adult actors often sounded forced trying to do teen voices. Kunis, being 15 or 16 then, just sounded authentic.
There was that specific direction he gave her too, wasn't there, during the audition process?
Right. He reportedly told her to come back, but this time speak slower and enunciate more clearly.
Which makes sense for animation, I guess. Timing, clarity for jokes.
Exactly. It's a technical skill, and clearly she mastered it. She's been Meg ever since, and even got an Annie Award nomination for it.
It's funny, the contrast between Jackie and Meg couldn't be bigger. One's the queen bee, the other's, well, the punching bag.
Totally. Jackie is all confidence and dominance. Meg's the scapegoat, as Kunis herself described her. It shows even early on she had this range within comedy. She could play completely different types. Okay, so she's got these 2 huge TV successes running concurrently. The logical next step is film, right? But the sources make it clear that transition was rocky.
Yeah, the early 2000s looked tough. Trying to break out of that Jackie Burkhart box seems like it was really hard.
Her first few attempts didn't really land. Get Over It in 2001 was just another teen comedy. But then came American Psycho 2 in 2002.
Oh boy. Straight to DVD sequel territory. That's usually not a great sign.
And this one was apparently particularly bad. The reviews were terrible. And crucially, the sources mentioned Kunis herself later expressed real embarrassment about doing it.
That's gotta sting. You're trying to build a serious film career, and you end up in this poorly received sequel that people kind of mock.
Exactly. It reinforces that TV actress label in a negative way. And a couple other films around that time, like Tony and Tina's Wedding and Moving McAllister, also didn't do well critically or commercially. They just sort of disappeared.
So it felt like she was maybe stuck for a bit there.
For a few years, yeah. But then comes 2008. And this seems like the real turning point, the start of that strategic pivot we talked about. Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Ah, yes. The Judd Apatow effect. She auditioned for Knocked Up First, right? Didn't get it.
Didn't get it, but clearly made an impression. They cast her as Rachel Jansen in Sarah Marshall. And this was different. It involved improvisation.
Which is a different muscle than scripted sitcom work.
Totally. And the film was a hit, made over $100 million. But more importantly, the reviews for her started to change.
What were critics saying?
Things like fresh beauty and focused energy, praising her comic timing. People were finally seeing her potential on the big screen. She herself credited Apatow's team for helping her break out.
And then she immediately swerves in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
Action movie. Max Payne, also in 2008.
Yeah, playing the assassin Mona Sachs from the video game.
Yeah.
And she really committed physically, training in guns, boxing, martial arts, showing that discipline again.
How did that one go over?
Financially, pretty well. Made about $85 million. Critically, mixed. Some reviewers felt she was miscast, still maybe struggling to see her outside of comedy.
But the industry must have been noticing her range or her willingness to try different things.
Seems like it. Because director Mike Judge cast her in Extract in 2009. He specifically said he liked her because she could make the character feel credible, real.
And then 2010 felt like a real consolidation year for her. 2 significant films.
Huge year. First, The Book of Eli, opposite Denzel Washington. Big post-apocalyptic action film. Made a ton of money, over $157 million.
And the reviews for her performance.
Really strong. Richard Roeper called it a particularly strong piece of work. Critics were noting that she was actively choosing roles to challenge that earlier image and proving she could handle them.
She also had a smaller part in Date Night that year, didn't she?
Yeah, a supporting role, but apparently memorable. One critic said she gave the film a shot in the arm, so momentum was building.
All leading up to the big one, the critical peak, Black Swan. Also 2010.
This was it, the film that completely redefined her image, directed by Darren Aronofsky.
How did she get cast? Was it Aronofsky seeking her out?
He apparently saw her in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which is kind of amazing, going from that broad comedy to this intense psychological thriller. And Natalie Portman, who was already starring, recommended her.
And the preparation for this?
Yeah.
It's legendary. It sounds absolutely grueling.
Oh, it was brutal. The sources detail it vividly. A super strict diet, only 1,200 calories a day. She lost 20 pounds.
Which she said she gained right back afterward.
Immediately. And then the physical training. 4 hours of ballet practice, 7 days a week. Non-stop.
That level of commitment is insane. Did she get hurt?
Yeah, she suffered injuries, a torn ligament, a dislocated shoulder. This wasn't just learning a few steps. It was pushing her body to the absolute limit.
And you could see that effort on screen. The transformation was incredible.
And the world noticed. The film was a massive critical success. 5 Oscar nominations. And Kunis herself started racking up awards.
What does she win?
She won the Marcello Mastroianni Award for Best Young Actor at the Venice Film Festival, a huge honor, and the Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actress. Plus, she got nominated for the Golden Globe and the Screen Actors Guild Award.
So Black Swan basically proved she wasn't just a comedy actress. She was a serious dramatic force.
Completely. It gave her that critical validation, that industry respect she'd been working towards for years. It changed everything.
And what's interesting is what she did next. She didn't just stay in serious drama land.
No. She pivoted again back to comedy, but now with this newfound credibility. In 2011, she starred with Justin Timberlake in Friends with Benefits.
Which was a pretty big hit, right? Rom-com success.
Huge hit. Made almost $150 million worldwide. And critics loved her in it. One called her a gift that keeps giving to mainstream romantic comedy. It showed she could do both, and do them well.
And then came the absolute monster hit, Ted, in 2012.
Reuniting with Seth MacFarlane, this movie just exploded. Grossed over $500 million worldwide, $549 million. Still her biggest commercial success.
Wow. So that period, roughly 2010 to 2012, Black Swan giving her the critical cred, then Friends with Benefits, and Ted giving her massive box office clout. That's the pivot fully realized.
Perfectly executed. She proved she could handle drama, comedy, action, and that she was a genuine movie star who could open a film.
So her professional career is hitting this incredible peak. But alongside that, her public persona is also becoming much more prominent, much more complex.
Definitely. The media certainly noticed her. She was getting those big, sexiest woman type accolades around then. Esquire in 2012, GQ the year before, #1 on FHM's list in 2013.
But she seemed kind of dismissive of that, didn't she? The sources mention a quote where she basically says, looks fade, you need something more substantial for a career.
Yeah, it's that interesting paradox, acknowledging the reality of how Hollywood values looks, maybe even leveraging it, but also publicly stating it's not what defines her or her career longevity.
And she definitely leveraged that visibility for big endorsements.
Oh, yeah. She was the face of Dior's fashion campaign in 2012, became a global ambassador for Gemfields, the jewelry company. In 2013, even visited their mine in Zambia. And then that big Jim Beam bourbon campaign starting in 2014.
That visibility translates to influence and money. Forbes had her on their powerful celebrities list in 2013, right?
Yep, ranked high for marketability, earning an estimated $11 million that year alone. She was a major commercial force.
Okay, before we get into the heavier stuff, let's quickly cover the personal life milestones mentioned in the sources.
Sure, she had that long relationship with Macaulay Culkin from 2002 to 2011, apparently an amicable split.
And then she started dating her that 70s show co-star Ashton Kutcher in 2012.
Right. They got married in 2015, have 2 kids, a daughter born in 2014 and a son in 2016, and they live in that much-talked-about sustainable farmhouse in Beverly Hills.
There were also some interesting health details revealed, something about her eyesight.
Yeah, she spoke about having chronic iritis, which is an inflammation of the iris. It actually caused temporary blindness in one eye at one point, but she had surgery to correct it.
And she has that distinctive eye color difference, doesn't she?
Heterochromia iridum. One brown eye, one green eye. It's quite striking.
Okay, so shifting back to her public actions. Beyond the endorsements, there's a clear pattern of using her platform for other things.
Absolutely. Like attending the Marine Corps Ball in 2011 after Sikineet Scott Moore invited her via YouTube while serving in Afghanistan. That got a lot of positive attention.
And more recently, that charity wine initiative during the pandemic.
Yeah, Quarantine Wine in 2020 and then Outside Wine in 2021, co-developed with Kutcher. They raised money for COVID relief and organizations like Thorn, which combats child sexual exploitation online. That shows a consistent philanthropic focus.
And then there's her political engagement, which the sources indicate is pretty direct. She's a clear supporter of the Democratic Party.
Very clear. There is a quote from 2012 where she criticized the Republican Party, specifically saying she felt they were attacking women and focusing too much on religion. She wasn't shy about her views.
Which leads us to that Planned Parenthood donation controversy in 2017. That was unusual.
Highly unusual and very deliberate. She publicly revealed she was making monthly donations to Planned Parenthood in the name of then Vice President Mike Pence,
Who was, of course, known for his strong anti-abortion stance. So this was intended as a direct protest.
Exactly. And it blew up. Supporters of Planned Parenthood cheered it, but it caused immediate and intense backlash from anti-abortion groups.
And that led to the hashtag Boycott Jim Beam campaign, right? Directly targeting her sponsor.
Yes. It was a very clear example of how taking a specific, provocative political stance can have immediate real-world consequences for your commercial endorsements. It put Jim Beam in a difficult position.
Then, fast forward to 2022. Russia invades Ukraine. This must have hit incredibly close to home for her, given her origins.
Deeply personal. And her response was massive and very public.
The GoFundMe campaign with Kutcher, that raised an incredible amount, didn't it?
They set a goal of $30 million for refugee aid, matched $3 million themselves, and ended up exceeding the goal. It was a huge effort, and she spoke very powerfully about it.
Saying she was so proud to be from Ukraine, really connecting her current platform back to her roots as a refugee from Chernivtsi.
That whole effort, her visibility on the issue, it led to Time magazine naming her one of their 100 most influential people in the world in 2022. It recognized that global impact.
She's also been active against anti-Semitism, which again ties back to her family's reasons for leaving the Soviet Union.
Right. The sources mention her signing letters supporting a Tel Aviv film festival against boycott attempts and calling for Amazon to remove an anti-Semitic film. Consistent advocacy there.
Okay, now we need to address the most recent and arguably most difficult public issue mentioned in the sources. The Danny Masterson situation.
Yeah, this is complex. In 2023, after her former That 70s Show co-star Danny Masterson was convicted on 2 counts of rape, it came out that both she and Kutcher had written character support letters to the judge before his sentencing.
And these weren't public statements, right? They were intended for the judge only.
Correct. Private correspondence, reportedly describing Masterson in positive terms, mentioning things like decency and generosity, part of the sentencing consideration process.
But when the letters became public knowledge, the reaction was intense.
Huge backlash. The core issue for many critics was the perceived hypocrisy. Here are 2 people heavily involved with Thorn, a charity fighting child sexual exploitation,
Writing letters of support for a convicted rapist, even if intended privately, the public conflict was stark.
Exactly. It seemed irreconcilable to many. How could they advocate for victims of sexual abuse while seemingly vouching for someone convicted of such crimes?
The fallout was immediate. They had to respond.
They released a video apology fairly quickly. They explained the letters were meant just for the judge as character references and weren't intended to question the verdict or hurt the victims.
How was the apology received?
According to the sources, not well by everyone. It was widely criticized in media reports as feeling performative and insincere. It didn't seem to quell the controversy.
It really highlights that tightrope walk for public figures, doesn't it? Private loyalties versus public expectations and the image tied to their advocacy work.
It's incredibly difficult terrain to navigate, especially now. The sources really underscore how blurred the lines are and how quickly public opinion can turn based on perceived inconsistencies.
Okay, so despite that very public controversy and the ongoing scrutiny, her career on screen and behind the scenes continues moving forward.
Yes, she's remained very active. Looking back a bit, commercially, she had that huge success with the Bad Moms movies.
Right. 2016 and the Christmas sequel in 2017. Those did really well, didn't they?
Hugely well. The first Bad Moms made something like $184 million on a $20 million budget, a massive return. And critics praised her comedy chops in them, her correct comedic timing. It showed she still had that reliable commercial comedy pull.
But she also kept pursuing challenging dramatic roles. The sources single out 4 Good Days from 2020.
Yeah, playing opposite Glenn Close as a woman battling severe opioid addiction, it was a really gritty, demanding role.
And her performance was acclaimed.
Highly acclaimed. Critics called it a revelation, maybe her finest work. It proved Black Swan wasn't a fluke. She could consistently deliver that level of dramatic intensity.
And a really key development around this time, or slightly earlier, was her move into producing, wasn't it?
Huge step. She launched her own production company, Orchard Farm Productions, back in 2014.
What does having your own company like that allow you to do?
It gives you control. Instead of just waiting for roles, you can develop your own projects, shape the narrative, choose the stories you want to tell. It's about taking power within the industry.
And she got a deal with a major studio right away.
Yeah, first look deal with ABC Studios for television projects. That means ABC got the first crack at anything Orchard Farm developed. It's a significant foothold.
And we saw that producer role combined with her acting in that Netflix film, Luckiest Girl Alive, in 2022.
Exactly. She starred and produced, playing a woman dealing with past trauma. And again, her performance got rave reviews.
What were critics saying about that one?
Collider called it a career best performance, hypnotic. It really showed the power of that combination, finding material through her production company that plays to her strengths as an actress. She's controlling the quality and depth of her roles now.
So what's next? The sources mentioned a few upcoming things.
She's keeping busy. She recently co-starred with Michael Keaton in a film called Goodrich, which apparently got good reviews when it premiered.
And she's producing and starring in another film.
A romance called The 47 Night Stand for Skydance. Still developing her own projects through Orchard Farm.
And then there's the big franchise news.
Yeah, the Knives Out sequel. She's officially joined the cast for the next Rian Johnson mystery, Wake Up Dead Man.
That's a huge ensemble joining a really hot franchise.
It absolutely is. It shows she's still very much in demand, seen as a versatile, bankable star who can fit into these major Hollywood productions. It's a long, long way from worrying about straight-to-DVD sequels. #outro.
So when you synthesize everything from these sources, what's the core takeaway about Mila Kunis? It's not just a simple Hollywood story, is it?
Not at all. It's a story fundamentally about adaptation, about pivoting, driven by that initial profound experience of immigration and displacement.
You see that thread running through everything, the hustle to get the 70s show role by bending the truth about her age.
The discipline to endure those early film struggles and then commit so intensely to roles like Black Swan or 4 Good Days to reshape her image.
And that same drive seems present in her public life, too. Using her platform for causes she believes in, whether it's Ukraine aid, Planned Parenthood, or fighting anti-Semitism. It seems very connected to her own identity and history.
Absolutely. She's clearly someone who uses her influence intentionally, even when it courts controversy, like the Jim Beam boycott or, more recently, the intense scrutiny over the Masterson letters.
She seems to operate in that space where the personal, the professional, and the political constantly intersect and often clash under a very bright public spotlight.
And she's experienced both the power and the peril of that position, the ability to raise millions for a cause, but also the vulnerability to significant public backlash when private actions conflict with public persona.
Which brings us to our final thought, something for you, the listener, to chew on. We've seen how Kunis's life has been shaped by navigating identity, assimilation, and public perception from a very young age.
So the question becomes, how does someone in that position manage the inevitable tension between personal loyalties, like loyalty to a longtime friend and colleague, and the immense moral expectations placed on them as a public figure, especially one deeply involved in advocacy work?
Where do we, as the audience, draw the line when the person, the performer, and their public stance seem to collide? Is there room for nuance, or does the platform demand absolute consistency?
That challenge, navigating the gap between private relationships and public responsibility in this incredibly scrutinized era, might just be the biggest, most complex pivot Mila Kunis has yet to fully navigate.
Definitely something to think about. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.